everybody is feeling well and having a good summer so far. As always, feel free if you have any questions to go ahead and throw them in the chat. Also, feel free to throw in like other, Hello and welcome. My name is Kathleen Sinnott, and comments or suggestions or life experiences that you'd like to share. That's what we're all here for. This is a community. We're here to share ideas and experiences and help each other do our jobs a little bit better, a little less stressful every day. All right, I think we should probably just dive in on this because I have no idea how long this is going to take, but I have a feeling it might run a little long because I usually do. So before we go too much farther, let me do the open and then we can dive right in. Hello and welcome. Today's topic is a day in the life of a software development business analyst. Not that there isn't a lot of overlap between the worlds, because there is, but specifically we would talk about software development because it does have some elements that are a little bit more unique. We'll get into it, but there are some special elements about it. Whether or not they're good or bad is up to you to decide on a personal level. Other than that, a lot of the elements will overlap, and I think you'll see pretty quickly which ones I mean as far as it being special. All right, for those of you who are new here, my name is Kathleen. Usually Mare is the one that is on air and I'm usually running the show, but some things have come up, so she's going to be out for a few weeks, so I am jumping in for her. But as always, feel free to throw any questions into the comments, any tips that you'd like to share, any experiences you'd like to share. That's all fine. I am looking forward to having this discussion because we are a special little breed here in software development, and there's a lot to go over. So let me dial in. Hi, John. You like my chat? You gotta mix it up every once in a while, right? You gotta keep everything interesting, and you gotta have some fun with it, because otherwise, what's the point, right? Okay, so we're gonna talk about a day in the life of a software development business analyst. I had to go SD here because it's tight. Couldn't fit the whole thing. All right, I guess we might as well just dive in, right? Why not? Let's go for it. I should probably drop that and bring that up. Okay, that's better. So, most people when they do this are going to break it up for you. Actually, let me just back out for a minute because I should have said this first. Most people when they do this are going to break it out for you by skills that you're going to use every day or approach to requirements. We're going to talk about the actual type of day. So what I did was, because no 2 days are the same in software development, certainly not for business analysts in software development. So I thought what I would do is I would kind of like average it all out. So for the past couple of weeks, I have been writing down every single thing that happened during the day. I went through and I kind of bubbled up the things that were the most consistent. And put those into the day. So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to do this throughout a 1 day, understanding that, of course, every single day could be different, every single hour, everything could change. That's just the way this goes. So that is how we're going to do this. Sorry, I should have explained that first. Okay, right? Morning. Now, I don't know if you're a morning person or not. I'm not, but you got to deal with mornings, so we figure we'll just start logically at the beginning of the day. Okay, so, right, it's pretty easy. You start out, get yourself to work, right? You survive your commute, you get in. Maybe you're lucky enough to work remote. You have to make it from one room to wherever you're going to be working. Got to boot up your computer. And then you hit the first glitch of the day, which is corporate has pushed some new patch or update, or, Windows has, or whatever, and you end up, twiddling your thumbs and hoping against hope that it's actually going to install well and that you're not going to be too far behind. This is why I like to get that started a little bit early, because I very often have early meetings, and I like to make sure that if I have to reboot several times, that I have enough time for that without, yelling and screaming and running around with my hair on fire. So that's where you always want to start. Then, assuming I don't have a first of the morning meeting, I use this opportunity to get caught up on emails and respond to whatever I can. This is particularly important if you are working in a situation where you've got coworkers in different time zones. The larger the company, the more likely you are to be scattered across time zones. That said, I've worked for very tiny companies that had people scattered, so things will have happened while you were sleeping. You need to take care of those. Hopefully there are some answers in there for you from people that you've asked for more information about, or subject matter experts providing you a little more insight on a particular project. So you want to dive in on those and get those ready. Then, being that we live in an agile world, however that word is applied, because agile does not mean the same thing everywhere you go. Just be aware. It's loosely interpreted in everybody's team. But however that is, usually you end up having your daily morning check-in meeting. Maybe that's one-on-one with the boss, maybe it's the whole team or whatever. Could be 5 minutes, could be an hour. It depends on your team and the situation, where projects are. Then you're going to get ready for the first meeting of the day. For me lately, it has been meetings that I have initiated where I am presenting and I am collecting information. So it takes me a good 15 to 30 minutes to get everything prepped, because I need to have all the materials ready that I'm going to show, have any backup documents that I might need, have a way to take notes, and to have some other things in my back pocket for things. You try to anticipate as much as you can where you expect things to go, but you also try to anticipate how they might go differently and try to make sure you have everything ready, because you don't want to waste people's time fumbling around trying to find, oh wait, that's in a different document, or oh wait, the example of that is over here and I don't have that up yet. So you want to have everything as ready as you possibly can, given the abilities of your computer. Not all of them let you present and do things well. We are right now in a situation where we have people across multiple time zones, so most of our meetings are online. And you have to watch, because especially if you're presenting, that's using more of your system resources, so you may not be able to open up everything you need to, but hopefully you can open up enough to get you through. Then you go and you start the meeting and you start to wait, right? You're waiting for people to show up. Now, of course, you're in presentation mode, so you can't do anything else really, except maybe scribble on a piece of paper, because you want to have it ready for when people are coming in. Then, of course, the people who show up early or on time, you have to keep them engaged and focused, because you'll be waiting for your primary key subject matter experts to show up, who are very often late because they are a valuable resource and they are spread too thin. So you will have some small talk. It's a good chance to kind of check in, see what's going on with other projects, see if maybe there's something coming down the road that you don't know about. It's just a good chance to kind of, get to know other people. It's also really valuable because you may never meet these people in real life, so it's a chance to kind of humanize the whole process, talk to each other as human, not just team members. So that it can be annoying sometimes, but try to turn it into a positive. Try to make it work for everybody in the room. If nothing else, just make sure that you're keeping everybody focused, because the last thing you want is for those early people to get distracted by something else on their other monitor, and then stop paying attention to your meeting, because that is not your goal. Then you're going to start your meeting. You're going to go through, you're going to walk through your requirements document, any flows that people need to look at and verify, make decisions on, that type of thing, any comps that you've built. You're going to be collecting feedback, getting answers to your questions, and just generally answering questions about the requirements. Sometimes people misinterpret things, or they're not sure that it's the right thing. Sometimes they've gotten distracted and they forgot what you were talking about, so they ask you a question. These are all things that are going to happen. This is just our life every day, every day, every other meeting at least. As you get close to the end of the meeting, try your best to start wrapping things up a little bit early, because you don't want to be the reason that these people are late to the next meeting. And we all know everybody schedules meetings right up to no window of adjustment. So you want to try to start to wrap things up ahead of time, try to get consensus on either the decisions being made or the next steps that are going to happen. After the meeting, take 2 minutes, if that's all you've got, to write down really quickly the notes that you're going to need that are going to clarify things when you get back to look at them in several hours or days, when you're ready to go back and make whatever changes or adjustments or additions, because you're going to be slammed into something else right away. So take that time while it's fresh in your mind and get some notes down there, because we all trust our brains too much. We're human, we're fallible. So get as much down as you possibly can so that you don't forget anything. Don't think, oh, I'll remember that, because I guarantee that enough distractions will come up that won't be possible. And that's why if you have it written down, that will help you get it all right. The other thing, if you can do it, it depends on the tools that you have in-house. But I have found over the past few years that it is really helpful to record the meetings if I can. Not because I'm looking to do anything nefarious with them, because it helps me not have to go back and say, in that last meeting, you said this, right? Because I can just go back and I can replay, that part of the meeting and verify that, okay, yes, I did understand that right. That is what they said. Or no, I misinterpreted. My brain has twisted it from the time I heard it to the time I'm working on it. And that way I can go ahead and I can clarify it and get it right the first time, because you don't want to waste your time. You don't want to waste other people's time. So if that's an option for you, you might want to give it a try, because it really does come in handy as far as going back when you're working on your requirements, especially when things are complicated. So especially software development. So when you're dealing with software development, one of the things that's a challenge is people tend to only focus on what we call the happy path, right? So they talk about the most common, straightforward path, that they're building this piece of functionality for, or updating it for, or whatever, which is fine. I mean, that's the trigger for doing it. But our job is to make sure that not only does that get taken care of, but all the little side roads and all the little crossroads and all the other things that come before it and all the things that come after it. We have to make sure all of those pieces are being fit together. And that does get into some very complicated logic sometimes. So when I say make notes, that doesn't necessarily mean words. Okay, it could be a picture, right? So if they're talking about the flow of information or how a process is done, in a practical standpoint versus how we're going to do it in the new standpoint, the new software, maybe you want to draw pictures, whatever it is that works best for you to communicate to yourself that this is what was talked about and this is what the plan is. Use that. It doesn't always have to be words on a piece of paper someplace or on the computer. So it's like a little bonus tip. Let's take that away. Okay, so we've done all that. Then you're ready to move on. Still your morning, right? It's been action-packed so far, and we're going to keep going. So now at this point, you're ready to jump into your next meeting, okay? You literally maybe have had 2 minutes in between, but that's the way it goes. So maybe there's a new project that you're going to be working on, and so you're going to attend that kickoff meeting. Generally, those are a half hour. Sometimes they're 45 minutes to an hour. Some project managers like to use the kickoff as the kickoff and the initial requirements gathering. So those kinds of meetings can run 2 or 3 hours sometimes. So make sure you look on your invite to the meeting so that you're prepared for whatever it is coming, because if you're just expecting it to be a kickoff, everybody meets everybody, agrees on the terms, that's one thing. But if you are now going to be expected to ask intelligent questions and have some plan in place, make sure that you are prepared for that, because it's not fun when it happens and you are not notified in advance. In between, maybe jump on your email again, do a quick check of that, make sure everything is okay, see if any more information's come in. Has some new thing bubbled up? 2 weeks ago they said that this project was a fill-in to do in between other projects. Now all of a sudden it's on fire and it is the top priority. Happens all the time, so you need to stay on top of things, check on that. Hopefully at this point your morning has left you enough time between what you were going to do and your mid-morning plans, so maybe you can actually jump in and do some work. I'm not kidding. This is how it goes. I'm giving you the hard facts here. I'm not sugarcoating. I'm not painting it all pretty. I'm not doing this to scare you off. I'm telling you this so that you are prepared and so that you have a realistic expectation of what's going on. So this might be your first chance then to jump in and pick one of the multiple projects you're working on and dive in, right? Work on some flows, maybe work on some comps, maybe finish up a requirements document, maybe start one, whatever it is that you need to do for one of your projects. Pick one and you're going to start doing it. And then in between all this kind of stuff, as you're doing it, you're going to answer emails, you're going to get IMs, you're going to have to handle phone calls, you're going to have to handle, if you're on site, people, walking into your cube to either chat or ask you questions about a project or give you a heads up on something that's coming. And we're only at morning. Okay. Actually, let me just do a quick check and make sure everybody is okay here. I don't want anybody to get scared by this, but I do want it to be a fair representation, because a lot of people don't get into this with an understanding of what goes on. All right, so we're good? Fine. Let's get into our midday. Okay, so if you're very lucky and you've planned ahead, you'll be able to grab something to eat, whether that's grabbing a sandwich out of your bag or running down to the cafe or running into town to get something. Do try to eat. It's in your best interest, trust me. Grab fresh coffee, whatever it is. At this point, you may be attending a lunch and learn, or you may be leading it. Now, not everybody's familiar with this term, so a lunch and learn is an opportunity for people to learn more either about the project or the company, or work on their skills. And the company makes resources available to do that during your lunch hour, hence the lunch and learn thing. So it is one of the few meetings where it is okay to be eating, because they kind of expect that since it is the lunch hour. Very often business analysts are asked to actually lead these because of our diverse skill set, and particularly for in-house people who maybe, a lot of times it's either for new people or, people maybe who haven't worked with the software or the new functionality that's coming out. It's an opportunity to get everybody up to speed on those kinds of things, which is why we end up doing it, particularly if you don't have an in-house training department. But even if you do, a lot of times they haven't done their training documents yet, so you're going to have to do lunch and learn. They may be in the lunch and learn to get tips on how to write the training materials. So this happens fairly often. And then again, maybe you've got a little window in your midday where you can again jump in on either that project you were working on before or a different one to work on requirements and comms and flows. This is going to be a recurring theme, as is answering email, dealing with IMs that are popping up, and handling phone calls and in-cubicle visitors. Finally, you've made it to your afternoon. Yay, afternoon. Hang on one sec. So let's talk about our afternoon. So this is your chance now to reach out to your subject matter experts, okay? So that project that you're just getting started on, or that project that is a work in progress and you've gone along and you realized, okay, you need some more clarification. People have said that XYZ happens, but you found out about A, B, C, and E, and you want to figure out how that all fits in. Or you want to, test some ideas, maybe for your comps or for some flows off of the people that you had the initial conversation with, to make sure you're on the right track, because you want to catch things before they get too far out of hand. Now, that is super important. You want to make sure that as a part of these contacts that you're having with these people, that you're not just pulling information out, but that you're also sharing, because you don't want to finish your requirements and your comms and get dev comfortable with it and then find out that you misinterpreted something that they said. So make sure that you're doing these regular touch-ins. Now, there are people who are going to tell you you need to do that every day, every week. I don't happen to agree with that, because I don't like meetings for meeting's sake. We're all busy. And I like to really value our subject matter expert time. So I only call these meetings when I'm at a point where I have enough to show and enough questions to make it worthwhile to suck up some of their time. And generally that is very well accepted. So give it a try. See, maybe it'll work for you, maybe it won't. You do have to deal with whatever your realities are in the place that you are working. But it works for me. Okay, so then you're gonna, after you've talked to them, maybe you're gonna need to go and do some research on your own for, either maybe competitor research, maybe you're gonna do some research on patterns around some functionality that hasn't been in the tool before, and you wanna make sure you're using patterns that fit. Maybe you're gonna do some research, maybe there's some legal aspect to what you're working on, maybe there's some industry standards that you need to go and get some clarification on to make sure that they're represented properly. So that's, for me, afternoons are a good time to do that kind of stuff before the next meeting. Then you're going to get ready for your next meeting, okay? So let's say that the first meeting was, a new project, that you were first presenting the requirements on. Very rarely do you get sign off after the first requirements review. So now you're going to spend another 15 to 30 minutes getting ready for your next meeting, which is now a second, third, 18th review of the requirements and flows and comps and so on and so forth. Be the same pattern. People are going to come late because they've got other meetings, or they were coming back from lunch and they got caught in traffic or whatever. But you need to make sure that you don't just sit there with nobody speaking while we're waiting. Make the most of that time, whether it's small talk to make a human connection, or it's just general, chatter about projects and the company or whatever, to keep your ear in, and also to make sure everybody's on the same page. Whatever it is, don't let that just be an echo time. Make sure that you're making the most of that time. And again, you're going to go through, you are going to show them requirements, ask questions. Now, okay, so here's another thing. You will have sent out, and whether you send out, maybe you put it into a shared drive, but people will have had access, ideally, to your requirements and your flows and your comps before you have these meetings. And your expectation is that they will have looked at them. It's a good expectation, but don't count on it. So you want to make sure that as people are having discussions and as you're going along and you're asking questions, make sure you're always bringing up the pictures or the part of the document that is relevant to the conversation. Because if you don't, people are going to be distracted, they're going to be looking out the window, they're going to be checking their phone, or they're going to be assuming that they know what's being spoken about, and answer according to their assumption as opposed to what everybody is actually talking about. So I find that by actually putting that image up on the screen, okay, whether it's a flow, it's a comp, or that part of the requirements, maybe the business rules or whatever, by having it in front of everybody, it helps to focus them. It also gives the folks who have not read your document a chance to read that section or to, take in that section. But always make sure that you're keeping up on the screen all that kind of stuff, because otherwise the conversations tend to wander. And that can be a really bad thing because it can completely derail your meeting, which means you're going to have another. And let's face it, nobody wants to have another meeting. Okay, and the same thing, as you get close to the end, but before the actual end. Like I try to do it, 5 or 10 minutes before I start to wrap up. Because there are always things that are going to bubble up, and I want to make sure that we nail down what we can nail down, identify the things that we still have to go back over, or if you're really lucky, you're going to get verbal sign-off on the requirements. Now, you're still going to need to send it out for actual sign-off, but at least getting that verbal makes you feel like, okay, we're really here. And then when your boss asks you what's the status of it, you can say, well, we got verbal sign-off, we're waiting for the actual sign-off. Okay. Now you've survived that meeting and it's time to dive in and do some work. So maybe it's a good time now. It's late afternoon, right? People tend to get a little tired. Go grab a cup of coffee and then grab a project that's a little farther along that you feel is ready for that verbal sign-off. And do a quick sanity check on it. At this point, right, it's late enough in the day that even if you had worked on it, early in the day, enough hours have gone by that you can bring fresher eyes to it. By fresher eyes, what do we mean? We mean when you are working on a project, and you are reviewing it as you go, your brain knows what you meant to put in there. So sometimes your brain is going to tell you it's there, even though if it's not actually on the page, or that change that you meant to make but forgot to may not jump out at you. But if you give yourself a little time, a couple hours at least, a day or two is even better, and then go back and sanity check that document, that flow, those comps, the errors are going to jump out at you then. And you're going to be like, oh my God, how did I not see that before? But that's just because that's how human attention spans and human brains work. Don't beat yourself up about it. Use that time to go in and make sure that you get it all fixed and cleaned up. Okay? So once you're sure that it's right, you've verified it, you've done your spell check, please check the spelling. One almost got away from me today. Then you're going to go ahead and this is a good time to refresh your table of contents. If you aren't sure how to do that, check out the last show because I did a walkthrough on how to do that kind of stuff. Table of contents, some other quick things that are good to know in your Microsoft Word documents. Make sure that everything looks okay. Do a quick flip through because people will get distracted. Like if like the font changes from one page to another, that's enough to distract people. So make sure that there are no distractions. Make sure that people are focused on the content you're providing. Then go ahead and create the PDF copy that you're going to share with the teams, and then copy your source documents and any notes and the copy that you're sending out to your shared team drive so that, if you win the lottery, your boss is going to want people to be able to go back and keep working on that document. So you always make sure there's a current copy out on the shared team drive. Then take the PDF copy, because you don't want people making changes to your stuff. Take the PDF copy and put that out on the project drive. So sometimes it's project drive, sometimes it's project management, sometimes it's project office, sometimes there's a tool that's being used. However it is that your folks work, make sure that you put the most current copy out there. And then I always send an email out saying, hey, the new version's out there in the usual place. Any questions, let me know. Just to kind of bubble up the awareness of it, just to be on the safe side. All right, we're still in our afternoon. So this might be the point where somebody wanders into your cube and says, hey, we need you to jump in to this development sandbox and do some testing for us. Now, it's not that you don't have a QA department, because you do, and QA's quality assurance. Sorry, went right out of my head. My brain was saying questions and answers. I was like, no, that's not right. It's not that you don't have a quality assurance team. It's that your quality assurance team, I can guarantee you, is swamped. And so they're always going to ask for help, and the BAs are always a good source for that because we know the requirements better than anybody because we're the ones who wrote them. So you may be asked to jump in at this point in your day to go and spend some time and do some testing for them. So of course you're going to go do that. You're going to want to make sure that you're testing not, again, just the obvious things, but also the not so obvious things. I mean, people drop things on their keyboard. What happens? If they try to put numbers into an alpha field, if they try to put letters into a numeric field, what happens? What happens if they try to skip a step? All those things. You're going to want to make sure that anything that does not match the requirements, you're noting in as much detail as you can. Include screen caps, even do little videos. Like, for example, if you're using Snagit, you can actually record your screen and then attach that to the issue that you're going to send back, which can be, that can save like a half-hour conversation, because the developer won't have to come back to you and say, well, how did you make that happen? Because you'll have shown them. So anything you can do like that to make it quick for them to go in and fix it, and also to reduce the number of times they have to come back for clarification, it's in your best interest. But also don't ever look at this as like it's not my job, because it is. I mean, all of this, everything that is around getting the project out the door successfully, correct, functional, useful, is a part of our job, and that includes this. So, and it's kind of a nice way to kind of see what's going on, because sometimes they'll have missed something, or they'll have gone a little rogue, shall we say. So there's a good chance to kind of pull those back and go, what happened here? What's going on? In the nicest way, of course, and then try to either get it back on track or understand why that happened, and maybe you're going to have to go back and update your requirements document, because your requirements document should always be reflective of what actually is going on. It's not a written in stone kind of thing that once it's written, and whatever changes come later we don't care about, because it will be the point of reference next time something gets done in this piece of software or with this piece of functionality. That will be the baseline that either you or other business analysts will use to create the new requirements for whatever the new changes are. So make sure that everything is in sync as a part of this process. Then maybe, you're going to have to, at this point in your day, it's late in the day, you're going to be going home soon, but okay, HR has been honking at you about finishing the required training, so this might be a good time to jump on and do that. And of course, the ever-present email IMs, phone calls, and visitors in your cube. Okay, so you're thinking, okay, great, you've covered it. Morning, midday, afternoon, you're all set. Don't panic over this next one, okay? Particularly in software development, I do know it happens on other business analyst projects, but it absolutely is going to happen on software development ones. You may not expect it. It may not be presented to you during the hiring process. So I'm telling you so that you aren't shocked by it. Try not to get upset about it, because it is, I'll explain why, but it's actually a good thing. For your project, for your users. It may not be such a wonderful thing for you sometimes, but you have to work around it. You have to be aware of it. Just know that this is not an all the time thing. This is usually the kind of thing that's going to happen in a crunch time. Okay, so by now a lot of people are like, I know where she's going. And you're right. I'm sorry. I know you don't want to hear this. I know this is not anybody's favorite part of anything. But I'm not here to lie to you. I'm here to give you a realistic expectation of what the job is going to entail day to day, and this is going to be a part of it, okay? So stick with me. It's not necessarily as bad as it sounds. So when a project is getting ready to go out the door, right, you're not going to do a release generally in the middle of the day, right, because you don't want your user community to have to stop work or to have work unexpectedly interrupted. So you're going to do your releases, probably the weekend or the evenings. Before it gets released, okay, they're going to release it. Usually they do a preliminary. So there's usually different environments. And there's usually an environment where they load the software that has a version of the database and all the security things and everything that is a complete mirror of production, but is not production yet, so that you can run through the tests again to make sure that everything really is going to be okay before you push it to production. So there's a lot of different names for it. The names don't matter, but very often you're going to be asked to pitch in on those kinds of testing sessions. There's always a higher level of excitement, anticipation, stress around these kinds of things, because you are literally minutes from pushing it out usually. So you want to give it your full and complete attention. From a practical standpoint, it has to be evenings and weekends, because what's going to happen next is a release, assuming that nothing catastrophic gets found. But the other reason for it to be evenings and weekends is because if they do find something catastrophic, sometimes it can be fixed before it's going to be released, because you can be sure that the release date and time has been announced to everybody. So everybody is expecting it to be released tomorrow or the next day, whatever, depending on what your schedule is like. So you do want to make sure that it's as real and ready as possible. And yes, even though you've tested it on the other environments, software is a complicated beast. And literally, even if you've got exactly the same hardware and software and the environments are exact mirrors of everybody, you're still going to run into problems that you didn't see before. It's just the way this works. People sometimes get really aggravated and frustrated about it, but there's no point. It's just the way it works. And then when it gets moved to production, the first people that are going to want to use it is QA and us, because again, we're the ones who've been pounding on this thing for a while. We're the ones who are going to catch the things that are not right away. Hopefully it'll be small and easy to fix, but you're going to want to do it before your users actually wake up and start using it. So that's why that's going to happen. You're also going to find yourself using evenings and weekends for stuff that you didn't get a chance to do during the workday because of all the meetings and requirements gathering you had to do and other things that pop up. There are parts of our job that are absolutely 100% impossible to do if you don't have a block of time to focus. So you notice, like before when we were going through the day, you were trying to jump in and do your job in between all the other things. And there are things where that's perfectly fine, but when you are working on complicated flows, when you are trying to figure out how the user interface needs to work, especially if you're doing the user interface across multiple devices, which these days most of us are, or maybe you're doing it across different pieces of software, right? So for right now, what I'm working on is a lot of things that are going into 3 different pieces of software. The 3 different pieces of software is a reality that was there when I walked in the door. But they have one piece of software. It's an old school desktop app, I swear to you. These things are still out there being used. So it's an old school desktop app that the internal people use. And then there's 2 different portals for different audiences of the clients because of the way that they sell their packages. So the same functionality, I have to do 3 times, and I have to test 3 times across all these different things. Some, are going to be mobile friendly, some aren't. So this is the kind of thing where it's like it gets very complicated, and you need to make sure that it is consistent, except for presentation, like elements that you don't want to jar people out of what they're used to seeing. You don't want to take them out of the patterns they're used to seeing in their different software development software packages, but you do need to make sure that it's all working. So this is an example of some time where it's like, I end up having to do this at home or on a weekend because I can take it, I can print out things, I can hang them on the wall, lay them on the floor, hope Murphy doesn't walk on them too much. And that's the best way for me to like really dig in and focus and let my brain completely engage uninterrupted for hours at a time sometimes, so that I can figure it all out, get that very clear picture in my head that then I can work off of later to do all of those little quick jump in and do what I need to do in between other things. So again, it may not feel like the most attractive part of this job to you, but it is one you don't want to shortchange yourself on, because it's actually going to make your job easier when you take those. Now again, this is not an all the time thing. It's usually at the beginning of a project or at the very end. And it's not even all the projects. It's just the really super complex ones. So again, I'm telling you this so that you're prepared, because I want to be honest, trying to not sugarcoat things, but this is the kind of thing, some people get angry about it, there's no point. And in the end, it's actually going to save you a ton of time down the road and a ton of stress. So that's why it's a good thing to do. John says, software's like a toddler. 1 minute they're fine, next minute they're puking and running around with a fever. Yeah, that's pretty much it, actually. I've never heard it put that way, but that absolutely nails it, John. Absolutely. It's fine, everything's wonderful, you've been testing it, it's great. As soon as you show it to upper management or a customer, things start blowing up. Or as soon as you move it from the dev system into QA, or the QA into UAT, which is user acceptance training, that's when it's going to start to go wrong. So you've absolutely nailed it, John. Yep, thank you. That's it. We should have shirts made. Okay, so back we go. Again, there are these HR mandatory things that you have to take. Most of them are not a big deal to get through, but every once in a while, they'll give you one that'll take an hour and a half to go through. That may be too much of a disruption for your day, and you're not always able to save it and go back to it, which drives me crazy, but that's the way it is. So sometimes you're just going to say, you know what, the hell with it. I'll VPN later, because you usually have to do it on the corporate network, and just take the stupid thing and get it over with. Because sometimes it's tied to your bonuses, sometimes it's tied to promotions, sometimes it's just tied to your part of your team goals. So you have to do them, but you don't have to do it 3 times, which is what will happen if it's one of the ones that you can't save and you keep getting interrupted. So sometimes that's just the best time to take that mandatory HR training stuff. And it's a time to also up your skills. Either you're going to, refine some, keep them fresh, pick up some new ones along the way. Sometimes you can do that during the workday. Most of the time that's going to be evenings and weekends. And again, none of these are all the time. These are all just things that are going to happen once in a while. And in full disclosure, I want you to know that that is a possibility. I'm seeing some people go, oh no. Yes, I know. It's not optimal, but that's why, when you're figuring out, when you're going in and you're doing your job search, which is a whole other conversation we've had before, and we have classes on even too, your compensation should not be based on just Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. Okay, we'll just put that out there. Not going to leave you hanging on this one, though. I do have some survival tips for you. So, just for practicality's sakes, if you can, and you can't always do this, but I always look at like the next 2 weeks on my schedule, because by then most people have scheduled the really big meetings, and if I see a window that maybe I can block out for myself and get a full hour of full concentration, maybe even longer, go ahead, make meetings with yourself. Now, don't get carried away. Don't block out your entire day for the rest of the year. Be strategic about it, but then make sure you capitalize on it. So if you're doing this and you're in the office, maybe disappear out of your cube and go find some quiet corner where people won't expect to find you to do your work, assuming that's allowed at your business. But do make sure that you do that wherever you can, because it can be a great way to cut down on those nights and weekends. Make smart use of your do not disturb mode. Okay, so maybe you're not putting the calendar, you're not marking out time on your calendar for your work, but when you get those windows, go ahead and say, hey, for the next 15 minutes, half hour, on do not disturb. Just make sure you turn it off. Again, don't abuse it, because then people will ignore it. But if you only do it, at times when you really need it to be on, people will generally respect it. Make sure that you stay hyper organized. Okay, make sure that you have got your directory structure set up. And again, if you want some tips on that, we did a show on that. If you go back in the history, you can go and see, we actually walk through, how to set up your directory structure, some tips on how to set it up. We actually gave you examples. Make sure that you can get to stuff like that, because you're going to need to. Make sure that you've got whatever printed stuff. Make sure you've got a folder for every project. Maybe multiple folders. Maybe you do for each project, maybe you're color coding it. You've got, 3 blue folders, one for the requirements, one for flows, and one for comps. And you've got yellow ones for a different one. However you work best. But again, it's all about the more organized you are, the less time you waste looking for things, which is always going to be in your best interest. Even if you're not normally a super organized person, this is a good time. Like if you're going to pick one part of your life to do it in, this is a good one. And don't be afraid to share information. Some people hoard information because they feel like it gives them ongoing power. Make sure that, they're not going to get fired or whatever. Don't go about it that way. You're only hurting yourself. Share information. Don't be the only person who knows everything. Write it down wherever you can so you can point people to it. I do this a lot because I get asked a lot for technical help. So there is always somebody, who's like, how do I put the table of contents in again? Or, how do I do the footnote, in the document? Most of the time they're working off a template, but this usually means that they screwed something up, and so that piece that was there for them is gone and they need to fix it. So the first time I do explain it and show them how to do it. The second time I kind of highlight it and I point them to the document, and from that point on I just keep pointing them to the document or the video I made or whatever, because at that point it's like, okay, I've explained this, I've shown you how, I've given you an example, now you need to go and figure this out. I'm not doing it to be rude, but some people will let you do their job for them because that's what they want, really. But by sharing the information, by making sure it's out there, by making sure that it's accessible to people, you are going to actually end up saving yourself a lot of time and aggravation. So don't be shy about it. Take 2 minutes to just throw it down on a piece of paper or on a wiki or however it is your crew communicates, so that it's there and people don't have to always be bothering you for it. Okay? All right. I talked really fast to get through this in a reasonable amount of time. Not too late, so we're pretty good here. Just going to do another quick check here. I'm not trying to freak anybody out. There's a lot of people freaking out. Okay, it's okay. It's not. None of this is an everyday thing except the morning, afternoon, evening, morning, midday, afternoon thing. But these other stuff is going to just come up, and I just want you to be aware of it because I hate to see people get surprised by this stuff. It's no fun to see people get surprised by this stuff. They tend to get upset. So this is why we decided to do this, because we do get this question a lot. So we wanted to make sure that everybody, got at least a feeling for what a realistic day in the life is. It's going to change every day. Everything's going to be shifted a little bit. If you are the type of person, which we've talked about too, if you're the type of person that needs every day to be the same thing, predictable, unchanged, frankly, this may not be the job for you, because the whole thing about being a business analyst is being able to handle the chaos and the change and put some structure around it, put some organization around it, pull out the information that needs to be there, get rid of the stuff that doesn't. That is the core of what we do very often. And so this is what it is. This is what the job is. So yes, there are parts of it that are more fun than others, just like there are some projects that are more fun than others, but at least now you should have a realistic expectation of what things are like. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to us on thebazone.com. You can also join the mailing list. Lots of people have been joining lately. Thank you for that. We send out notifications about the topics for the show, other things that are going on. We keep all those folks up to date all the time. And as always, right, it wouldn't be a live stream or a video if we didn't say, if you found this helpful, please share it with a friend, follow, turn on notifications, all that kind of stuff, so that we'll get notified about the upcoming shows that we're doing and other things that are happening. If you have any questions afterwards, of course, this is available so that you can go back and watch it. But you can also reach out to us anytime. Let us know if you have questions, comments, if you have ideas that you want to share. You can go ahead and throw them in the comments if you are on Facebook or on YouTube, because we do go back and check old shows to keep an eye on that. Unfortunately, Periscope, that's not an option, but you can reach out to us at the site. So you can go to thebazone.com, or if you prefer, you can reach out to us on Twitter. All right? Thank you all so much. I hope you're having a great summer. I hope that this was helpful for you folks who are thinking about maybe making a move into this. Please come join the party. We need more good business analysts out there. We just want you to be informed about the decision that you're making, so that you know what you're getting into. I can tell you it's very rewarding work, and it's never dull, which is one of the things I love about it. I love the fact that it's always changing. So if that sounds interesting to you, then none of this is going to bother you and you'll be okay. All right, everybody. Thanks so much. Have a good one. I will see you next Thursday, same time, same bat channel. And that's it for now. I hope you're having a good summer. Take it easy. Bye.